Stripped of its formal/aesthetic construct, minimalism's message is this: you probably don't need that. That could be a new gadget or Nana's quilt taking up space in the basement of the too large home you pay a mortgage on. You don't need it if you have the money, and you definitely don't need it if you don't. The stuff won't make you happy, and chances are good that it will distract you from the parts of your life that do. As Dave Bruno wrote, stuff is not passive. And here's my favorite line from the article. Stuff wants your time, attention, and allegiance. I think that's really important. Our stuff wants our time. It wants our attention. It wants our allegiance. But you know it as well as I do. Life is more important than the things we accumulate. The guys behind the movie, that's us.
Yeah, that is us.
The guys behind the...
Hey, we're those guys.
Alludes... The guys behind the movie that the writer alludes to, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, a.k.a. The Minimalists, both come from dirt poor homes. We were broke. This is a quote, I think, from me. We were broke, dead broke, food stamps and WIC and various other forms of intermittent government assistance, Joshua Fields Milburn said. Their respective origin stories involve a pursuit and eventual attainment of money and material wealth. By age 19, I was making over $50,000 a year, twice as much as I'd ever seen Mom bring home, but I was spending even more, racking up credit card debt. I obviously needed the 3 M's in my life. Make more money, Milburn said. He and Nicodemus traveled the well-trodden path toward happiness via professional advancement, leading to increased stories of stuff and increased overhead, debt, and stress. And they also found out that path led nowhere. Something, incidentally, the Times documented a few years ago in the op-ed piece, Living with Less, a Lot Less, by Graham Hill, who was also on our documentary. While the devotees of Marie Kondo might suggest minimalism is a patrician dalliance, there are plenty of people like Milburn and Nicodemus who came from modest means, people who arrive at minimalism after bottoming out on the pursuit of actualization through accumulation. And then he put this photo in here. You got to see it, Ryan. It's an Onion cover. It says the top 10 products to battle consumerism.
Oh wow!
And that's where we always have to be, skeptical, right?
The Onion is fake news, just for those who aren't aware.
Yeah. I thought it was alternative news. And yes, Kyle Shaka writes, the oppressive gospel of minimalism. Minimalism can be culturally appropriated by wealthy folks. First time something like that's happened, is what David wrote here. It can take on a Dwell magazine / MoMA store sheen that obscures the essence of the movement, which is all about intentional subtraction. There are no purchases necessary to be a minimalist, and it's a good idea to be suspicious of anyone that says there are. And I think that was the great way. And he goes on even farther here about the biggest reason to go minimal, but I'd like to pause for a second and just say, yeah, let's be suspicious here. There are tools that will add value to your life. There are books and our documentary and Joshua Becker and Leo Babauta's blogs and Courtney Carver and her Simple Year course. I mean, there are things that can help you.
Sure.
But just don't think that you have to have anything to simplify your life.
Yeah, I promise. Yeah, anyone listening to this right now, I promise you, if you have $1 million in the bank, there isn't like this magic thing that you can buy that's going to help you do the work. I mean,
yeah, and the same thing. You might find enlightenment in a particular book, or going back all the way to the Stoics and reading some of that stuff. Those are experiences, and I think that's nice, but don't think you need a thing to simplify your life. I think it's one of the bigger problems with places like the Container Store. Yeah. People think they go there, I'm going to buy a bunch of things to organize my life. Well, that's part of the problem. The organizing is inherently problematic. And so David here sums it up. He says, the biggest reason to go minimal, the talk of class politics and fetishization of minimalism. I got that word right first time.
Nice.
I just was reading it right here. I'm like, I'm not going to get the word fetishization right the first time I read it. The talk of class politics and fetishization of minimalism misses the biggest point. One that makes all those topics seem trivial. The planet is being ruined in our pursuit of more. A Journal of Industrial Ecology study from earlier this year found household consumption is, quote, responsible for up to 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions and between 50 to 80% of total land, material, and water use. That's staggering. The initiative, and so for me, and I've said this before, but it's worth noting here, for me, environmentalism wasn't the core benefit of embracing a minimalist lifestyle, but it was a really nice benefit. If you consume less, you produce less waste. So even if you're not concerned about the environment, then you're still helping the environment by producing less waste. You're helping other people as well. Even if you don't buy into that, you don't believe in climate change or whatever, producing less waste is still a good thing. I think everyone can get on board with that, right? Okay, and let's see here. An initiative called Earth Overshoot Day calculated that on August 8th, 2016, we began to use more from nature than our planet can renew in the whole year. If we are to even dream of keeping the planet habitable, David writes, we must stop consuming so much stuff. You can argue that holding onto excess old stuff shares much of the blame with the new stuff. And I thought this was an interesting point, Ryan. Holding on to the stuff shares part of the blame, right? The infrastructure for storing our stuff, our humongous suburban homes, the $22 billion storage industry we support are resource-hungry byproducts of our inabilities to let go of stuff. So we're facing other problems by our inability to let go. What minimalism does is makes this ecological imperative a choice rather than an imposition. And I think that's the important part. Often we'll hear people, I was forced to become a minimalist. Well, no, minimalism is about intentionality. You can't be forced into being intentional. I was forced into meditating. That's not meditation, right?
Yeah, right.
Now, your circumstances may force you to be more deliberate with the resource you have, and I think that deliberate use is great. I'm sorry if some situation forced you into becoming more of a intentional person, but I'm grateful for that outcome if you are becoming more intentional, regardless of your resources. And so it says, don't be afraid of having less because it's pretty great. That's what he's saying about minimalism. Minimalism says, don't be afraid of having less because it's pretty great. And it's not a BS message either. Ample research attests that the best things in life aren't things. And he has a link to the research there. That relationships and rich experiences and expressing gratitude for what we have are the hallmarks of a good life. And stuff, whether it's a new iPhone or your spoon collection, is just stuff. Minimalism can be seen as a realignment of priorities and a preparation for a world when we cannot have everything we need when we want it. But minimalism is not an act of sacrifice, or rather, it's no more of a sacrifice than removing a malignant tumor. Sure, it hurts at first, but it's really good for you to let you live a lot longer and happier life. You won't miss it.